The sky was red with smoke. Trees burned in the distance. Metal pieces from a crashed ship lay scattered across the ground. Milan, a young human scout, pulled himself out from the broken shell of his escape pod. His arms were scratched, and his uniform was torn, but he was alive. He looked around. The planet was green and full of tall trees with glowing leaves. Strange bird-like creatures flew overhead, but everything else was quiet. Milan spoke to his broken wrist device. Scout Milan, crashed on unknown world. Ship destroyed. No signal. No contact. I will look for shelter, he sighed. This was supposed to be a simple mission to scan nearby planets for minerals. But something had gone wrong. An energy wave had hit his ship near this world, and now he was stranded. He walked for hours, his boots crunching through fallen leaves. The air was clean and warm. The sky above slowly turned purple as night came. Milan found a small cave near a stream and decided to rest, but just before he could sit down, he heard something, a soft cry. He raised his head and moved carefully toward the sound. Behind a group of glowing blue bushes, he saw someone lying on the ground. A figure, thin, tall, and clearly not human. It was an alien woman. Her skin was silver like the moon, and her long dark hair fell across her face. She wore a torn white robe, and her arm was bleeding. Milan stepped closer. The alien woman saw him and froze. Her eyes widened. She tried to crawl back, but she was too weak. Milan raised his hand slowly. "It's okay," he said gently. "I won't hurt you." She didn't understand the words, but she stared at his face. Her lips trembled. Then, to his surprise, she lowered her head, pushed herself to her knees and said in a soft voice, "My lord." Milan blinked. "What?" She knelt before him, her head still down. "I don't understand," he said. "I'm Milan. Just a scout. I crashed here." The woman looked up slowly, her eyes filled with tears. Her voice was weak, but she spoke again. "Flame has returned," she whispered. "You are the flame." Milan shook his head. "No, I'm just a man." The alien woman struggled to stand. She leaned against a tree, and when she tried to walk, she almost fell. Milan quickly caught her arm. "You're hurt," he said. "Let me help." She stared at him, confused, but didn't resist. He guided her back to the cave and helped her sit, using his small first aid kit. He cleaned her wound and wrapped it. Carefully, she winced but stayed quiet. As he worked, she kept watching him with wide eyes like she was seeing a ghost. "What's your name?" Milan asked. She touched her chest lightly. "Lyrae," she said. He nodded. "Lyrae, nice to meet you." He pointed to himself. "Milan." She said his name softly. "Milan." They sat in silence. The night grew darker and small glowing. Insects lit up the trees around them. Milan offered her a protein bar. She smelled it, took a small bite, and nodded. He smiled, but inside, he was still confused. Why did she kneel? Why did she call him my lord? And what did flame as return mean? The next morning, Milan and Lyrae walked through the forest together. She seemed stronger now and led him toward a hill. From the top, he saw a strange sight, a hidden valley filled with dome-shaped homes built into the rocks and trees. Dozens of alien people like Lyrae were there gathering food, repairing homes, and watching the sky. When they saw Milan, everything stopped. They stared. Some dropped their baskets. A child pointed and gasped. Lyrae raised her voice and spoke in her language. Milan couldn't understand the words, but the people began to kneel, all of them, even the elders, even the guards. Milan stood frozen. Lyrae turned to him and said softly, "You are the one who was promised long ago." The sky burned, and a man of flame came from the stars. He freed us. Then he left, but he said he would return. Milan shook his head again. "No, that's not me. I'm just a scout. I didn't free anyone." Lyrae looked into his eyes. "But the flame is in you," she whispered. The people slowly rose and began to gather round. Some touched his arms, others bowed their heads. One elder stepped forward, speaking slowly in broken English. "Welcome, flame of sky. We waited long time." Milan didn't know what to say. He looked around and saw hope in their faces. These people truly believed in something. They weren't pretending. But how could he be that person? His ship crashed by accident. He had no plan, no power. Still, he remembered something his father once said, asterisk. Milan sat on a smooth stone, deep in thought. Round him, the villagers worked silently. Some carried water, others cleaned tools or helped the young ones. But many kept looking at him, like he was a dream they feared might disappear. He still didn't understand it. How could they believe he was some kind of savior? He was a human scout, not a hero. Lyra sat nearby, sharpening a stick with a crystal blade. She watched him from the corner of her eye, calm and quiet. Lyra, Milan asked gently, "Can you explain what this is? Why do they think I'm special?" She put down the stick and looked at him. "Long ago," she said, "our people were slaves." "Slaves?" he asked, surprised that she nodded slowly. The dwarf came from the sky. Big ships, big weapons. They took everything. Many died. Many obeyed. Milan listened carefully. He had never heard of the dwarf before. One day, she continued, a light came down from the sky. A man, not dwarf, not like us. His skin was like yours. His words were strong. He fought the dwarf, and won. Milan's eyes narrowed. A human, yes, she said. He burned with light. He called himself Flame of Sky. He stayed with us, taught us to fight. Then he left. But before he left, he spoke of the future. He said, "When the sky burns again, the flame will return." Milan looked down at the bandage on his arm. "My ship crashed in flames. That's why they think I'm him." Lyra nodded. "Your fire, your voice, your eyes, all match. But that was years ago." Milan said, "Generations must have passed, many seasons," Lyra replied. "But the memory stayed." He looked up. "So they think I'm that man, the Flame of Sky." She smiled softly. "You may not be the same, but you are the spark." Milan let out a breath. He didn't want to lie to these people, but he also didn't want to leave them helpless. "Do you remember his name?" Milan asked. Lyra shook her head. "No, only his title." He stood up and walked to the edge of the cliff. The sun was setting behind purple mountains. Fires glowed below in the village. Suddenly, a loud boom echoed in the sky. Milan turned quickly. In the distance, he saw dark ships flying through the clouds. They were black, wide, and shaped like claws. "What are those?" he asked. Lyra's eyes filled with fear. "Dwarf." They returned. That night, a meeting was held in the old stone hall. The village elders, guards, and hunters gathered. Milan stood near the center, feeling like he didn't belong. Elder Rovin, a tall, thin alien with white eyes, raised his hand. "The sky has spoken. The dwarf have returned. We must prepare." Another elder shook his head. "We have no weapons, no training. We cannot fight." A third spoke. "The flame has returned. He will guide us." All eyes turned to Milan. He raised his hands. "I'm not your savior. I don't know how to fight an army, but I can help you prepare. I can teach you how humans survive." Lyra stepped forward. "His fire may be small, but it still burns." Rovin nodded. "Then we follow the flame." Over the next few days, Milan began working with the villagers. He didn't pretend to be a leader. He simply did what he knew. He showed them how to build watchtowers from wood and stone. He helped them dig traps in the forest paths. He trained the young ones to signal danger using mirrors and sound shells. Lyra followed him closely, learning fast. She was strong and quick, and the others looked up to her. Milan found old parts from crashed dwarf machines in a cave. With help, he fixed them into simple energy shields and small defense tools. Though the weapons were old, they still worked. He gave each person a task, a purpose. No one stood idle. For the first time in many years, the village felt alive with courage. One morning, the ground shook. A dwarf scout ship landed at the edge of the forest. A small group of alien soldiers, tall, armored, and gray-skinned, stepped out. They marched toward the village. Milan spotted them from a watchtower and signaled the alarm. Everyone moved to their positions quiet, focused. Milan met Lyra at the front gate. They're coming fast, he said. Are your people ready? She held her spear tightly. They are ready because of you. Milan looked at her. We fight smart, not strong. Aim for weak spots. Stay in groups, no panic. Lyra nodded. The Droth soldiers reached the gate. One stepped forward and spoke in a rough voice, using a translator. This world belongs to the Droth. Surrender now, or burn. Milan stepped out. This land is not yours, he said calmly, and we are not afraid. The Droth raised their weapons. But before they could shoot, Milan gave a hand signal. Ropes snapped. Traps triggered. The Droth fell into pits. Others were hit by falling stones. The villagers rushed out with spears and slings. The fight was short, but the village won. The surviving Droth ran back to their ship. The people cheered. For the first time, they had defended themselves and won. Later, the villagers gathered around Milan. Their eyes shone with pride. The Droth scout ship left black smoke in the sky as it fled the valley. The villagers stood near the gates, still breathing hard. Some had small injuries, but none were lost. It was their first victory, and it changed everything. Milan stood quietly, with his arms crossed. He didn't feel proud. He felt something else, a storm coming. Lyra walked up to him, her hands stained from battle. We did it, she said softly. He nodded. We did. But that was only a scout team. The real army will come next. The joy around them slowly faded. Milan's words were true. Elder Rovan joined them. We wounded their pride. The Droth do not forget. Milan looked at the villagers. Then we train harder. We prepare for the worst. And we don't wait for them to strike first. The next day, Milan began working with every group in the village. He divided them into small teams, hunters, builders, defenders, and messengers. Each had a job, and each team had a leader. He made maps of the area, marking rivers, hills, and caves. He taught the people how to move in silence, how to listen to the wind, and how to watch the sky. The children learned signal patterns, flashes, echoes, smoke signs, things that looked like games but could save lives. The builders created more traps, deeper tunnels, and hidden chambers, and every night, the defenders trained under the stars using wooden weapons, learning how to fight in pairs, and moving through the dark without sound. Lyra became the heart of the warriors. She moved like a shadow, strong and calm. The others followed her without question. You should lead them, Milan told her one night. She shook her head. They follow you. They need someone like them, someone who belongs here. You belong here now, she said. Her voice was steady. Milan didn't answer. He still wasn't sure if that was true. One afternoon, a young boy ran into the village from the hills. His feet were bleeding, and his eyes wide with fear. They're coming, he cried. Big ships, 3 of them. Milan stood on the high stone platform and looked through his scope. In the far sky, 3 Droth warships moved like shadows, sharp, black, and deadly. They're heading toward the mountains. Milan said, They're not attacking yet. They're watching us. Rovan stepped beside him. They wait. They gather power. Milan turned to the people. We don't wait. We take the fight to them. A gasp ran through the crowd. You want to attack them? One elder asked. They have machines, weapons we've never seen. Yes, Milan replied. But they don't expect us to be ready. They think we'll hide. We'll show them we're not afraid. Lyra stepped forward. We will strike first. That night, under the moonlight, Milan and a team of 12 villagers moved silently through the forest. Each carried a simple weapon, spear, sling, or stone blade, but their eyes held fire. They reached a cliff above the Droth landing site. From there, they saw the 3 warships. One was larger than the others, with towers and glowing lights. Hundreds of Droth soldiers moved below, setting up weapons and camps. Milan whispered, That one, the smallest ship. We hit it, cut their strength. Lyra nodded. We make it. Burn. They split into groups. Milan and 2 others went to the left. Lyra led the rest around the right. They used vines and shadows to move. Step by step, breath by breath. At the edge of the clearing, Milan placed small crystal charges explosives he made from mining rocks and machine parts. He gave the signal. Boom. The explosion shook the ground. Fire rushed through the back of the Droth ship. Smoke filled the sky. At the same time, the other group threw fire jars and stones, targeting the fuel tanks. The Droth screamed and ran. Some fired back, but the villagers were already gone, disappearing into the night. The smallest ship burned until morning. The village cheered when the team returned. They had done the impossible. They had struck a blow to the mighty Droth army and escaped without loss. But Milan's face was serious. This was only the beginning, he said. Now they will come with full strength. We must be ready. He knew the Droth would not wait any longer. They would see him as a true threat now, and he was right. 3 days later, the ground trembled again. Not from ships. But from something else. From the mountain pass came a large Droth walker, a war machine with 4 legs and a long tail that fired plasma bolts. Behind it marched a full platoon of Droth soldiers, strong, silent, and armed. They are coming, Lyrae said, watching from a tower. Milan looked over the walls. Then we meet them. He gathered the villagers. This is the real fight, he said. We may fall, but if we do, we fall protecting our home, our people, and our right to live free. He looked at every face, young and old. This is not my fight alone. This is yours. You have the courage. You have the fire. Lyrae stepped beside him and raised her spear. We are not afraid. The crowd roared in agreement. The Droth were coming. But so was something else, human will. The sun rose behind the mountains, casting a golden light across the village. But the people were not calm. They stood with weapons in their hands and fear in their hearts. Far in the distance, the Droth walker marched forward. Its metal legs crushed the ground beneath them. Its long tail glowed with energy, ready to fire. Behind it came dozens of Droth soldiers in dark armor, moving in perfect lines. Inside the village walls, Milan stood on the watchtower, scanning the horizon. They're almost here, he said quietly. Lyrae climbed up beside him. We are ready, Milan nodded. Not just to fight, to outsmart them. He had spent the last 2 nights digging, building, and planning. The village wasn't just a group of homes anymore, it was a trap waiting to spring. Milan had always believed in one simple rule. When you can't win by strength, win by thinking. So he had drawn a plan, one that used every part of the land, every skill the villagers had, and every mistake the Droth might make. He placed archers high in trees. He hid spikes under the soft soil. He led the enemy paths between rocks where they couldn't turn easily. Even the children had roles, helping with messages and moving supplies. Lyrae had trained the fighters to move in pairs. They didn't rush. They struck fast, then disappeared. Like ghosts in the forest. It was the human Wakewick, clever, quiet. The Droth reached the first trap just past sunrise. The walker stepped into the forest. A group of villagers stood in the open, pretending to panic and run. The Droth followed. Fast, then snap. Vines pulled logs from the trees, smashing into the front row of Droth. Hidden holes opened under their feet. The Droth fell, screaming, into the deep pits lined with stone. More explosions followed as fire jars hit the walker's side. The machine turned, trying to aim its tail. But it was too late. From the trees above, archers launched spears wrapped in burning cloth. One struck the walker's eye. Boom! The tail exploded in sparks. The machine screamed like a beast and crashed into the trees. The villagers cheered, but only for a moment. The main Droth force had arrived behind the walker. Now the real battle had begun. Milan stood in the middle of the village gate. Lyrae stood at his side, her spear ready. The Droth soldiers marched forward. Milan raised his voice. You don't belong here. The Droth leader, a tall figure with silver armor, stepped out. We take what we want. This world is weak. Milan smiled. Then come take it. The Droth rushed forward, but the villagers didn't wait. They met them head-on, spear against sword, stone against steel. Milan fought like a man who had nothing to lose. He blocked a Droth strike and hit back with a metal rod. The alien fell. Lyrae moved like wind. Her spear flashed through the air. She fought to protect, not to kill, but she was fast, fierce, and brave everywhere Milan looked. The villagers were holding strong. They didn't have the strongest weapons, but they had hope, and they had each other. The battle lasted for hours. The Droth pressed hard. They broke through part of the wall, but behind that wall were more traps, nets that pulled them up, fires that scared them, and tunnels filled with brave villagers. Milan was wounded by a sharp cut on his arm, but he kept fighting. When he saw a young villager about to fall, he ran to help. He picked up a Droth weapon and used it to block an attack, then pushed the enemy back with a loud cry. "You're not taking this village," he shouted. The Droth leader growled and charged at Milan. The two met in the center of the field. Steel hit steel. Sparks flew. The Droth was stronger, but Milan was faster. He ducked under a strike, rolled forward, and hit the Droth in the chest with a powerful blast from the stolen weapon. The leader fell with a loud crash. The other Droth looked around. Their leader was down. The walker was broken. Fire burned around them, and the villagers stood strong. Side by side, the Droth turned and retreated. Silence filled the air. Then came the cheers. The villagers cried out in joy. They hugged, laughed, and some even fell to their knees in thanks. Milan dropped the heavy weapon and fell back, breathing hard. His arms were shaking, and blood dripped from his cut. Lyrae rushed to his side. "You're hurt. I'll live," Milan said with a smile. She tore cloth from her sleeve and wrapped his arm gently. "You stood in the center," she whispered, "like the first flame did." Milan looked at her. "I didn't do it alone. They fought. You fought. That's what saved this village." Lyrae shook her head. "No, they were scared. Until you showed them how to fight, you gave them fire." Milan sat quietly for a moment, watching the stars appear in the sky. "I'm not a hero," he said. "I'm just a man." Lyrae smiled. "Maybe, but sometimes a man is all a people need." Later that night, Elder Rovan came to Milan's resting place near the stream. "You have done more than we hoped," the elder said. "The Droth will think twice before returning." Milan looked up. "They still might." Rovan nodded. "Yes, but now we have something we didn't before." "What's that?" "Belief." The old alien smiled. "And belief can be stronger than steel." Milan looked into the night sky. He had no ship, no way home. But for now, he didn't care. He was here. These people needed him, and maybe he needed them too. The smoke from the battle still rose into the sky. Trees were blackened. The walls of the village were broken in places. Some homes were half burned. But the people stood tall. They had won. But Milan knew the Droth were not finished. He stood near the center of the village, his arm wrapped in cloth, still healing. Beside him stood Lyrae, calm but watchful. "The Droth will return," Milan said. "Stronger, angrier." Lyrae nodded. "We stopped them once. We will stop them again." Milan looked at the mountains in the distance. "Not with sticks and stones this time. We need something greater, something they don't expect." That night, Elder Rovan called Milan to the old stone hall. Inside, the elder held a glowing crystal in both hands. This was left behind by the first flame, Rovan said. "It is called a memory stone." Milan stepped forward. "What's inside it?" The elder placed the crystal into a holder. A soft light filled the room. A blue image rose in the air, a man, human, tall, with short black hair. He stood beside a machine with spinning lights. He looked straight ahead and said, "If the Droth ever return, and if I do not, this machine will awaken by the spark of my kind." The image disappeared. Milan's heart beat faster. "Where's that machine?" he asked. Rovan pointed toward the northern cliffs and the ruins of the Sky Temple. "No one goes there. It is cursed." Milan shook his head. "No curse. It's a weapon, one that only a human can unlock." The next morning, Milan, Lyrae, and 5 strong villagers set off for the Sky Temple. The path was steep and covered in thick vines. Strange lights moved between the trees. No animals made sounds. After many hours, they reached the top of a rocky slope. There had stood a broken stone building, shaped like a dome. half covered in moss and roots. Its walls were marked with old human symbols. They entered slowly. Inside, the air felt cold. Dust floated in beams of sunlight. Machines rested along the walls, long dead. At the center was a large stone table. On it lay a silver box with human markings. Milan touched a dot. The box lit up. A soft voice spoke in English. Human signal detected. Weapon system ready. The villagers gasped. Milan opened the box. Inside was a device like a small cannon, but shaped differently. It had a grip and an energy slot. Next to it was a pack of blue crystals, a power gun, Milan said quietly. Old human tech. He lifted it, and the machine hummed with life. This is what we need. Back at the village, Milan tested the weapon in a clearing. When fired, the gun sent a blue beam across the ground, cutting through a large stone. The people gathered to watch. Their eyes were full of hope and fear. We can't build many like this, Milan said. But we can build something similar. Using parts from the old Droth machines, Milan began to work. He taught the builders how to reshape the metal, how to connect the energy lines, and how to store the power crystals. Within 2 days, they created 4 energy launchers, simple but strong. Milan gave one to Lyrae. You lead the defense, he said. They listened to you. She accepted the weapon and nodded. We fight together, soon. A scout brought a message from the mountain edge. Ships, he said, breathing fast. 4 big ones. Coming now. Milan climbed the watchtower again and looked through his lens. The Droth had returned with their full army. The sky turned dark with the size of their ships. Lights blinked along the hulls. Doors opened on the sides, and hundreds of Droth soldiers began to descend. At the front was a new walker, twice the size of the last one. It had a long, glowing cannon on its back and armor all over its legs. Milan turned to Lyrae. We don't let them reach the gate. She raised her weapon. Then we stopped them outside. The villagers lined up in the forest path. They had spears, shields, fire jars, and now energy launchers. Milan stood with them. He wore armor made from Droth scraps and held the original human cannon. Remember, he shouted, we don't fight for power. We fight for each other, for our homes, for freedom. The villagers raised their weapons and cried out together. Then the trees shook. The Droth were here. The battle began. With a roar of thunder, the Droth fired energy bolts, burning trees and rocks. But the villagers were fast. They hid, moved, and struck from shadows. Lyrae led the charge on the left. She fired her launcher, hitting the enemy walker in the leg. Sparks flew. The machine staggered. On the right, Milan and his team launched fire jars at the Droth soldiers. The flames spread, confusing the enemy. Milan climbed a ridge and aimed the ancient cannon. He fired once, boom. The blast hit the Droth walker's upper cannon. The top exploded in bright blue light. The Droth began to fall back. The villagers pressed forward. Every time one of them fell, another took their place. Every time the Droth pushed forward, they were pulled into a trap. Hours later, as the dust settled, only one Droth ship remained in the sky, rising fast, leaving its army behind. The ground was covered in smoke and silence. Milan stood in the center of the field, breathing hard. His arm was burned. His legs hurt. But he was alive. Lyrae ran to him. Her face was tired, but she smiled. You did it, she said. They're gone. No, Milan replied. We did it. The villagers gathered around them. Some cried, some laughed, and all looked to Milan. The sky was calm, but Milan's heart was not. The battle had ended, but he knew the war was not over. The Droth had retreated for now, but they would come back stronger. Lyrae stood beside him as they looked toward the northern cliffs. There's one last hope, she said. Quietly, the hidden weapon. Milan turned. The one from the memory stone. She nodded. The first flame builded before he left. It was meant to end the Droth threat forever. Milan's eyes brightened. Where is it? Lyrae pointed toward a narrow path between tall rocks, in the ruins of the old Sky Temple. No one has gone there for many years. It is protected by traps and puzzles. Milan took a deep breath. Then we go. The next morning, Milan, Lyrae, and a small team of the strongest villagers set out. The path was hard. Thick vines blocked their way. Sharp stones cut their feet. Strange noises echoed from the cliffs. After hours of walking, they reached a giant door carved with strange symbols. Milan studied the carvings. They are old human signs, he said. I think I can open it. He pressed some symbols in a sequence he remembered from the memory stone. With a heavy sound, the door slowly opened. Inside was darkness. Lyrae held a glowing crystal that lit the room. The walls were covered with pictures, humans, aliens, and machines fighting side by side. In the center of the chamber was a large machine covered with dust and vines. Milan approached it carefully. It looks like a cannon, he said, but much bigger. He touched a panel, and the machine hummed softly. Lights flickered on the walls. A voice spoke in human language, clear and calm. Welcome, flame of sky. Your arrival has been awaited. Milan stepped back in surprise. The voice continued. This weapon was built to protect all worlds from the Droth, but it requires the spark of a true flame, one who fights for freedom. Lyrae looked at Milan. You are that flame. Milan hesitated. He did not feel special. He was tired and hurt. But the machine waited. He touched the control panel. Suddenly, energy flowed through the room. The weapon powered up. Back at the village, the news spread quickly. The villagers gathered, watching from the hills as Milan and the team returned, followed by a huge machine glowing with energy. Elder Rovan stepped forward. This is the true power of the flame, he said. Milan climbed onto the machine. He looked over the village. I will not let the Droth return, he said loudly. This weapon will protect us all. Lyrae stood beside him, holding the new energy launcher. The villagers cheered. Days later, the Droth returned. This time, their army was larger than before. Ships filled the sky. Walkers marched through the forest, but the villagers were ready. Milan's machine stood at the center of the valley, its energy shield glowing like a star. The battle began. The Droth fired their weapons, but the machine sent back waves of energy, blocking their attacks. Milan controlled it carefully, aiming powerful blasts at the enemy walkers. Lyrae and the warriors used the smaller energy launchers to fight the soldiers. The villagers moved like one body, defending every inch of their home. The battle was long and hard. Many villagers were hurt. Many Droth fell. But in the end, the Droth had no choice. They fled, leaving behind their weapons and ships. Milan stood on the battlefield. His arm was bruised. His face was dirty, but he smiled. He had done what no one thought possible. He had become the flame. That night, the village celebrated. Music and laughter filled the air. Children danced around fires. Elders told stories of the first flame and the new one. Milan sat with Lyrae, watching the stars. She looked at him and said, You are not just a man. You are their hope. Milan nodded. I came here by accident. But maybe it was destiny. Lyrae smiled. He reached for her hand. Then I choose to stay, he said softly. The next morning, Milan walked to the stone monument in the village center. Carved in the rock were words in ancient human letters. He read aloud, Here stands the flame of sky, protector of the free, guardian of peace. He looked around at the people. They no longer called him my lord. They called him Milan. And that was enough. The morning sun rose over the valley, bright and warm. The village was alive with sounds of birds, laughter, and the soft hum of machines slowly being repaired. Milan stood on the stone steps of the village center, looking at the people he had come to know and protect. They no longer feared the sky or the dark ships that once brought destruction. Now, they were free. Lyrae came to stand beside Milan. You have changed everything, she said softly. He smiled. No, you all did. I only helped. She looked at him, eyes shining. You helped more than you know. Milan nodded. It was never just about fighting. No, Lyrae agreed. It was about hope and trust. The elders gathered around. Elder Rovan stepped forward, holding a simple wooden box. This, he said, is a gift for you. Milan opened it carefully. Inside was a small glowing crystal, the same blue light that powered the weapons. Rovan smiled. This crystal is A symbol. It means you are part of our people now. Milan's eyes softened. I am honored. He looked around at the smiling faces. This place, once strange and unknown, had become his home. Days passed, and the village grew stronger. The old machines were repaired and improved, the people trained. Together, learning not only to fight but to build, grow food, and share knowledge. Milan taught the young ones about the stars and the wider universe. He told them stories of Earth, of human courage, and of peace. The villagers listened with wonder. One evening, Milan and Lyrae walked to the edge of the forest. They looked up at the sky. The stars were bright. Peaceful. Milan took Lyrae's hand. We have won the battle, he said, but the future is ours to build. Lyrae smiled. Together. Suddenly, a soft sound came from the forest. A small group of travelers appeared, humans, like Milan. They wore uniforms and carried tools. One stepped forward. We have come to find the flame of sky. Milan stepped forward, surprised but calm. The leader spoke. We heard the signal. Your fight is not forgotten. Milan looked at the villagers behind him. They are not enemies, he said. They are friends. Lyrae nodded. The village welcomed the newcomers with open arms. New hope, new knowledge, and new friendships began. The village became a place where species met, shared, and grew together. Milan's stories spread beyond the stars, a tale of courage, unity, and the power of one man who became a flame. He had started as a stranger on an unknown world. Now, he was a leader, a friend, and a symbol of hope. As the stars shone brightly overhead, Milan whispered, "This is only the beginning." And with Lyrae by his side, he was ready for whatever came next.